The comment about US clients willing to spend 20 times more, the business is that much bigger that you're dealing with.
Our flagship client over there, Spectrum, they're a $50 billion for Fortune 100 company. So they're 20% of New Zealand's GDP, right?
Yeah.
Like one company.
Welcome to Checks and Balances, brought to you by Partners Life. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. And today we've got Stanley Henry, founder of The Attention Seeker, here to talk about how to transition from employee to entrepreneur without going broke.
We're back in your life, and today's episode is a fun one. We talk a lot about property, we talk a lot about shares. We don't talk enough about businesses. So Stanley, welcome to the episode.
Yeah, thank you.
Really excited to hear about your journey.
Yeah, great to be on there. Looking forward to it.
So let's start with, tell us a little bit about, The Attention Seeker.
Yeah.
What are you all about?
Well, I mean, it's in the name, right? Like, we seek attention. We are attention seekers. Our whole thing is about organic growth.
Yeah.
So,
Did you steal that name from Mike? Did you have that trademark that you are an attention seeker?
Oh, man, I was born for it. Yeah.
that's it. I mean, the name, I was surprised the .com was still available, to be honest, when we started the business. But it is really just that. It's just like how to help people find attention. We do it in an organic approach as opposed to a paid approach, which a lot of traditional marketing agencies will do, which is nothing wrong with it. It's just our approach is to do it organically and use the platforms the best way possible.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And so just like in terms of the business, tell us, I think you're over 30 staff. Tell us about, you are a big agency.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about kind of the size of the business.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy growth. So we're 5 years in now, just a bit over 5 years. We're 32 staff at the moment and hiring. So the goal over the next sort of year and a half is to push it out to 100. That's not 100 in New Zealand because they'll be too expensive. So there'll be some definitely offshore staff that'll make up those numbers. But we're in a bit of a rapid growth phase at the moment. It is quite large for a social media agency. What we've learned, especially in New Zealand, definitely. But yeah, like we've been going for a bit, 5 years, 30-something staff. We kind of do everything in marketing, but we're known for helping people grow organically really fast. And we've got a lot of success of like growing platforms into channels into six-figure following accounts and tens of millions of views each month. Sort of our claim to fame at the moment is that we're averaging 71 million views organically for our clients every month at the moment. So with no paid. That's our last 6 month rolling average.
Yeah.
So that's our stick, like that we can do that. And that what we do for our clients, we do for ourselves. That's always been our thing, like not to be the painter with the worst painted house. And so we don't sell anything we haven't already done and proven for ourselves. So we've got about 2.6 million followers across our brands ourselves, and we generate about 30 million views just for ourselves. And so we just sell that. We did it for ourselves, and now we sell it to you.
So you've built this business. What were you doing before this?
So I used to run hotels for a living. That was my whole
career.
Yeah. So a really logical next step after running a hotel is to start a marketing agency. But no, like I fell into hospo because I just partied through my youth and I fell into it. I dropped out of uni. I ended up moving to Australia when I was 21 and fell into hospo. I realized that I had a bit of a knack for it as well. And I had a few good mentors who like helped me find my path, I suppose, in it. And I did that until I was about 32 before I moved back. But that 12 sort of year career, I went from essentially like moving tables into meeting rooms to eventually running the full hotels. And I did it all over Australia. So Sydney, Gold Coast, Brisbane, Melbourne. I ran a top restaurant in London for a bit and did a little small stint in Japan as well. So that was for about 12 years. And then I always knew marketing because when you're a general manager of hotels, you generally manage the hotel, right? Like you have a hand in everything. I learned early on that without marketing, you don't have a business. Like if people don't know you, you don't have a business. And then towards the end of my career in hospo, I started watching people like the Gary V's of the world and different people in that sort of space who were talking about this idea that like the platforms today give you everything you need to do any business you want. And I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur at heart. I've always had these little side projects and stuff. Started a clothing line in UK and all these little different things that I did, which is stupid. But they were, me trying my hand at business. And so I always wanted to do something. And it wasn't until I started watching this and then I met a guy who taught me how to use LinkedIn in Melbourne and we used it for the hotel. And in 21 days, we did this 21-day sprint with him. We had $130,000 worth of deposits in our hotel bank account from the work we did on LinkedIn. And I was like, holy fuck, like this is it.
That's got to be an aha moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, because I'd never known, I'd never realized like, how would I sell anything? You know, I've always had sales teams. You have hotel websites that people book through, third parties and all that. But I was like, if I go and do my own thing, how do I actually sell? I didn't really understand if I could. And that told me, okay, now I know a way to at least talk to people. So it gave me the confidence to go out my own. So then, October 2019, we moved back to New Zealand. And I just did that. I just started building, but I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I didn't go into marketing because I was like, oh, this is smart, make a marketing agency.
Yeah.
I was just marketing myself. I did it for 6 months straight, building my brand on LinkedIn. I was having 6 coffees a day, going to a networking event every night. I did that 6 days a week. And then COVID hit. And COVID was like the catalyst for the business because then people were willing to pay me money to do what I was doing on LinkedIn. And that's where it all started.
Yeah.
You know, and I was from hotels and the hotel industry was decimated.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Can't go
I'll
back.
take anyone's money. yeah.
I can't go back now.
I'll take, are you going to pay me for this?
Yeah.
Please give it to me. And then that kind of just like,
Yeah. And did you
snowball.
have, I guess we're sitting on the finance side of things. When you decided to go out on your own, did you have like a financial plan or anything where you thought, okay, I've got this much runway and I can do it for this long? Or talk to me about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I had 2 year, in my mind, a 2 year runway as long as I wasn't paying rent. So we moved back and stayed with my brother Wayne.
Yep.
And he was part of it. So thank you, Wayne. We stayed with him and, but I also, in Australia, they've got like their superannuation program is amazing.
Yeah.
So my partner and I probably have enough in our super that by the time we're old, it'll be enough to retire on. Like, because we're so young earning and I earn good money. So that gave me 2 bits of confidence. That one, I can go for broke. And if I end up broke when I'm 65,
Maybe all right.
I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I can at least live on what's going to be in there.
Yeah.
There's enough in there. So that gave me some confidence to be like, I can just try.
Yeah.
And then I also had enough runway, what I thought would last me 2 years. So we went into it going, we don't have to make our first dollar until 2021. But as I was saying, like that was like 6 months in and people started paying us. So it kind of changed it.
That's a really interesting point, which I want to get into. So when we talk to a lot of people who get into business, I was literally talking to a customer about this the other day. They're setting up their own thing and they're like, we want to make this revenue like in April. And I was just like, oh, this is not good. Can you talk a little bit about having that mindset of going, I've got 2 years opposed to I need to be really short-sighted to make money immediately?
Oh, I hate that. Like I talk to businesses like that who are startups and like, no, we need to do it this fast. And I'm like, you're going to fail because you're going to make bad decisions for the quick dollar and it never plays out long-term for you. So by us not having to worry about money coming in, when we first started selling like what we do now as a business, we're already pretty expensive for the size of the company because it was me. So it was just me. But I knew that I had to charge that much because I had to hire people to do the work because I didn't want to do the work. So I was selling this stuff, these services, had no one to do the services because I didn't want to do it. So I needed to make sure I could charge enough to then pay someone else. And when you're small, when you're starting out and people try to negotiate you down, you'll take it.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I got to get money through the door.
Cash coming in the front door, man.
Exactly, right? And so me having the confidence that I don't need your money. I mean, I want it, but I don't need it.
Trust me, I want it.
I really want it. I'll take everyone's money. But that allowed me to work on that. And then as we grew, I knew that all the money that came in, I actually didn't need any of it to live on. So then I reinvested it all straight away. Like literally hired the first client and then hired my dad.
Yeah.
And I hired my dad because I needed to be able to fire him without taking me to Fair Work, you know? And so I was like, Dad,
The funny thing, that is exactly what I thought when you said it. I was like, man, you just flick him at any time. Man.
Exactly. That's exactly the reason, right? And he was like, I don't want to do this. I was like, I know. It won't be long.
Just give me 3 months, man. Yeah.
And that was pretty much what it was. It was about 3 months. And then I was able to help him move on from it. And he was in retirement. So he was
help him move on.
Yeah.
It definitely sounds like you fired your dad.
Yeah.
How was it giving your dad instructions, telling him what to do? Like,
oh, you know what? I thought at first it would be quite hard because my dad's like, he's a big, proud Cook Island man. Like, you know, he was a hard dad growing up. But it was quite nice because he was like, he's at the stage of his life where he was just real proud that I was doing this, you know, like he was like, Dad was a serial entrepreneur. So he's seen me do this, like just giving this thing a crack. Like, he was like, I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'll do whatever. Like just the fact that you were trying, like it was enough for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was real good about it. And I didn't really have to, like I'm pretty good at systems because of hotels. Like everything's a system in a hotel. So by the time I had onboarded him, I was like, this is all you have to do all day. Got him set up in his house in Rotorua. And so he could work remotely out of his spare bedroom, and he was on.
Yeah, you're like, Dad, if you can just, dance and be viral like yourself, that'd be great. Yeah. Although there is a market for that, right? Like, be able to on.
They go off.
Yeah.
Luckily back then, like, it's quite funny when you start, like, because we were doing lead gen.
Mike has no idea what I've just told.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Old people dancing.
There's like the grandmas with like huge followings on socials.
Yeah. It's the subversion of expectation. You know, like you're not used to seeing grandmas dance. So when you see it, like, oh, that's so cute. Wish my grandma did
like
that.
doing a millennial style.
I don't know about millennial.
We're not,
Maybe
they're
Gen
not doing
Z.
backflips.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not. Oh, god damn it.
Yeah.
Gen
Like,
Z,
millennials don't dance.
Yeah.
We don't dance.
And if you are a millennial and you're dancing, you shouldn't be.
You shouldn't be. We don't
So
dance.
you had your dad working for you. You knew you didn't want to do the work. You wanted to build a team. What I'm really keen, I mean, obviously you're successful. You've built this business. You're looking at it. You're moving into a new office. Things are going really well. I want to talk about, which people don't talk about enough, the big stuff ups you had at the start, where in hindsight you go, I wish I could have done it differently.
Oh, there's heaps. Like heaps. Every day. Like I do them all day long, every day. And I think that for me, because like my risk appetite is really high. Like I'm really happy to take a lot of risk, and I back myself that I can put out any fire. Look, in terms of the biggest things that like really screwed us up, was probably just, if I was to go back in time and change, I would probably look after my clients better earlier. I pissed off a lot of people at the beginning because like I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was too far removed just trying to sell and palming work straight off to my dad, and like who had no clue what even LinkedIn was. He's like, what the hell am I doing here? And so I really like, I wouldn't say I burned bridges, but I definitely like annoyed a bunch of people who are like, oh, well, I just gave this guy all this money and it didn't really get what I needed. I learned lots from it, so it allowed us to fix it. But like, I don't like that. Like if we have a thing in our business that like, if we're not working for a client, like if it's not quite working out, we just stop billing them. And we just, until we get it working, and then we build them again, right? Like we just, I think it's just to over deliver all the time, like outstanding results every time. But in the beginning, I wasn't doing that. And it, you know, I wouldn't say I got a bad name, but there's a few people in the industry, lucky I was a lot smaller than that. They were just like, you're a dickhead, mate.
Yeah.
You know, and that really, I hate that.
Yeah.
Because it's not who we are now. But it taught us to get to where we are. But those sorts of things I didn't like. I sort of messed up a few of them, and then like, yeah, people screwed up. I then also, when I was the first time I went to the US, I signed a pretty large client. They were giving us about a 40,000 US retainer. So it was like pretty, for us at the time, it was like good retainer for us. It was like one of our biggest. And so I hired 2 guys in the US to deliver on it in New York. And we're like, yeah, this is all great. Got a contract signed and everything. They then pulled the contract because the owner, like she couldn't do it. Like she was too scared about what we're doing with her on TikTok. She was going viral and she couldn't handle it. And I was like, no, you can't pull the contract. There's like a 90-day cancellation and everything. And because I didn't get lawyers to do it properly and the change of jurisdiction and all that, like they were like, bring it on. Like we're a 9-figure business. Let's go.
Yeah.
We'll bury you in paperwork. We're ready to fight. Come at us. And I was like, I just can't afford this thing.
Distraction.
Yeah.
So I had to let 2 guys go. It was the only time I've ever had to make people redundant.
Yeah.
Because I just lost the contract, and it was at my just stupidity for not like just getting a proper lawyer, which would have cost me like $5,000 to just do the due diligence properly. So that was like a recent screw up.
I feel like that's something you Kiwis have a DIY attitude towards stuff, and we see it as well in our industry where we'll say the cost of a financial plan is this.
Yeah.
And instantly they go, I just do it myself.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, yep, or you can get a professional to help you get it done right, you know? Yeah.
And I'm so good. Like usually with lawyers, like my lawyer does all my contracts, like anything. And it was just in this particular one, I just got excited. I was in New York, I signed this contract. I was like, I just got my normal contract that I always use for all my Kiwi clients. Like, let's just go for it. And then, bit in the ass like real badly. But I haven't had, like, in terms of screw ups, I haven't had anything huge that's like, oh crap, we're about to go under. The hardest time though for us was 2022. We had a really tough year. We took on a bunch of clients in March, April of 2022. In March, I signed like 14 new clients, which for us is massive for 1 month, like huge. It's still my biggest month ever, signing new clients. Signed all these clients on, hired a bunch of people to deliver on it. By July, all but one had left and just ghosted us. Like because like it was a pretty tough time in 2022 for certain industries.
For a lot of
industries, yeah. And so they just had no money. Some of them went under. They just disappeared. We couldn't talk to them. They were small businesses too, so we didn't just want to send debt collectors after them because like they were in pain.
Yeah.
But that was like $400,000 worth of money that just like wiped off our forecast.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get money back from people. We hadn't done necessarily a lot of work because we charge in advance and things, but we had hired ready to do it.
In anticipation.
And so by the time I got to, I think it was September 2022, I was like, man, this business is about to go under. Like I've got all these expenses. I'm gonna have to let all these team go and just reduce down. And then I said to my wife, I was like, I need to go get out of Auckland for a bit. Can we go to your parents for a week in Brisbane? And just like, I just need to get out of here. We went there. I did nothing for a week. Her parents like, is Stan all right? Like he's literally just sitting in the room for a week. She's like, just let him, just leave him alone. Okay, my mind's fixed itself. I got back. And then I realized what I had to do to get out of it was just what I did to get into it, was just sell my way out of it. And so I just put the foot down and went to it. I ended up hiring Nate, who was like $160K salary a year. Like he was my biggest one at the time. And I remember publicly saying like, what, am I stupid? Like I'm about to go in and I've just hired this other guy. But then he's exactly what I needed at the time as well. And we just went after it. And we, by March the next year, we had signed One New Zealand.
Yeah.
And that was like, replaced more than everything we'd lost, plus all the other clients that we'd signed in the time. So it was just a matter of like, it was at a moment of like, I'm one bad day away from like, it all going to, where we are now.
Yeah. And I'm sure like over the journey, there's lots of days where like you're just feeling beaten up and there's, the highs and the lows. And I can't remember who said it, but running a business is like chewing glass and looking into the abyss and telling yourself it's going to be okay.
100%.
You just, one of the biggest things is just not giving up, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like for business owners, that's probably, I know we were talking about like other businesses and those sort of things beforehand where people go, I just want out. And one of the things is just going, success is not defined by what happens this week, this month, or necessarily this year. The game is just to continue.
100%. Oh, we always talk about that. Like the best businesses in the world are the ones that just didn't give up. Like they're not necessarily any better businesses. They just didn't quit. And they just continued and they struggled through it and they got there. And by the end of it, like, as you guys know, like even with business, it's exponential in its growth. Like it always compounds if you do the right things. And so just by not quitting and just like getting that separation from the team as well, just to clear my head and get out of it, was just what I needed to go, no, I can do this. Like I've done it before. I know what to do. I just need to go meet as many people as possible and I'll find my way out of it. Yeah. But yeah, 100%. Just don't quit.
Yeah, there was a Starbucks CEO or founder when his wife got pregnant and he just had like one coffee shop that wasn't doing really well or anything. And he, his father-in-law pulls him aside and he goes, mate, you've got a wife and you've got a kid on the way. You got to go get a proper job. And it was his wife who put the foot down and was like, no, I believe in you. You keep going. Yeah. And you look at what it's built. Yeah. And having that support and that belief within you to keep going is so important.
The whole team know that Claire is the reason we're still around because her like pulling me aside and like, and then again, like taking me to her parents and getting her parents just leave him alone. Like he's fine. Like every time I'm at that point, she's the one who comes in. It's like, she's always got my back and like, and knows that we're on the right path. But her thing to me always is, and she knows how to do it now, so it pulls me out of these things really quickly. It's just like, what did you do to get here? What did you do? Oh, I had 20 coffees a week. So how many coffees you got this week? 4. She's like, so you got 16 more to go. Yeah. Like, you know what to do. Just do more coffees. Go knock on people's doors and get more coffees and you'll get the business. Just stop being a sook. Like, just get on with it, And I need it. I need it to be that.
Sometimes you just need that. Yeah, you need that though. Someone to pull you out of it and go, actually, just go do what you're good at and do the thing.
Exactly.
Before we move on, we talk all the time about planning and growing our wealth, but protecting that wealth is just as important. That's why having the right insurance in place can help when life goes unexpectedly.
And that's why this episode is brought to you by Partners Life, a New Zealand operated award-winning insurance provider with over 300,000 Kiwis insured and 89% of claims paid.
Partners Life understand that having some insurance is better than having no insurance. They have flexible and personalized solutions for any budget or situation.
Check out their website in our show notes below.
You've recently opened a team in New York, and I know we saw a bit on LinkedIn about that. Yeah. Talk to me about that. How's it going? Why New York, and why not just like Australia, like every other business?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, how's it going? We're taking it slow. We've gone over 2-3 month stints over the last year and a half.
Yep.
We signed a couple of big clients. We've got a really flagship client that's setting us up over there. We've got one team member on the ground at the moment, but to be honest, like most of the work can be done remotely. She's an account manager.
Yep.
The goal is for me to go back in September, October this year, do another 3 month stint, and just slowly but surely like build up a client base so that then can afford us to like fully open up there. But the reason why we're only doing those 3 month stints is like, it's like in New Zealand, like right now, February, March is like where you make all your money in our business. Like everyone's spending budgets before the new financial year and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's similar in the US. Everyone's trying to spend their budgets before January 1st. So we go over for that October, November, start of December. We sign some people and we then deliver it from afar. So it's going well. Like it's, without taking that punt, we definitely wouldn't be at the speed of growth we are at the moment. Like New York's injected a lot of cash into our business and it's really profitable business for a New Zealand company because our cost of delivery is way less than a US business trying to do the same thing. The reason why we went New York before, say, Australia, like a lot of Kiwi businesses don't, is that we already have clients in Australia. We already service it. So it wasn't, and look, they pay the same amount as Kiwi businesses. Like the difference in what they're willing to spend is like very minimal. You might get it in Australian dollars. So yeah, maybe 10% increase maybe.
Mate, by the time you service an overseas client, do the exchange rate, and
it's not really worth it.
Yeah.
And the biggest cost to us as a business is me out of the office. If I'm not in the office, the local business suffers because I'm the only business developer in the business. So I'm the only one pushing it forward. Everyone's just like client delivery. And so taking me out of New Zealand is like a big deal for us. And we're not going to do it just for the same of what we got here. And we're not even 1% of the market here, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not even close. There's like 600,000 businesses and we don't have 60 clients.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if we can go to Australia, why not just do more of New Zealand, make it easier, it's easier to deliver on. But going to New York, it's literally 20 times. Like it's 20x the revenue and the size of the contracts. So now it's worthwhile. Now it's actually worth the effort to go for it. So that was the first reason. We knew it was much bigger. And we knew that because of just like people we'd networked with on LinkedIn and TikTok and stuff that people had met. The second reason is my wife and I have always wanted to live in New York. Like it's always been a dream of ours. It's a bucket list thing for us. We've both been there separately. And then we're like, no, we both want to like do a stint living there. So selfishly, we just wanted to do that. And then third, it's a great branding exercise. You know, like a New Zealand company opening up a New York office is like, wait, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
How are you doing that? Why not Sydney?
That's
the
flex.
questions. It's a flex.
Yeah.
And so from a branding perspective, like that's my whole game, right? Is branding is like this perception of us. Now, I don't want it to be a fake perception. So we're actually got to go and try to do it. But even if it didn't work, I'm like, the way I've shared my journey over the time, any losses we have had, I've shared and I've got a lot of praise for sharing them.
Yeah.
So even if I gave it a crack and it didn't work out, I knew it was still going to be good branding. Like the type of person that it takes to do that is the type of person that our clients want to work with.
Yeah.
So it was a win-win no matter what. So yeah, like hopefully by next year we'll be a bit more permanent. We'll probably have to set up an actual US entity by that stage because Trump will want his tax.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do that. So we're not just operating out of New Zealand.
Yeah.
But that's why we're taking it slow because it costs a fortune to set up business over there.
Yeah. The comment about US clients willing to spend 20 times more, I'm sure a lot of people be listening being like, is it really that much bigger? Are the clients really, the business is that much bigger that you're dealing with? Is that what it is?
I mean, our flagship client over there, Spectrum, they're a $50 billion for Fortune 100 company. So they're 20% of New Zealand's GDP, right?
Yeah.
Like one company.
And how the hell?
Got to make sure you get the lawyer to do that contract.
Yeah. We did. That one we did. Yeah.
And a lot of people going from New Zealand trying to, build in the US would go, almost like I'm not worthy of that client, or how could I possibly attract that client? Two things. How did you land that client? And the second thing, what was your mindset going into it to make sure that you landed it?
Yeah. So the first answer is simple. It's what we do, right? We've built a brand that generated, at that time, the first time we went over, we're probably doing about 20 million views a month. Obviously, to get 20 million views a month, you can't just get New Zealand audiences. It has to be global. 55% of our audience is the US. When we first, we knew that we had a large US audience. So we knew that was already something that there'll be a bunch of people who knew our name at least, the same way they know it here. And so we thought, let's just try. Let's just get ourselves on the ground. I know how to network. I know how to get coffees from people. I know how to utilize LinkedIn to start this conversation. So that was that gave me the confidence to go over. But then once we were there, like we started getting stopped on the street straight away. Like people like, because it's not New Zealand. Like people see me on the street and won't say anything, and they'll watch all my content. But you go to the US and like Joni and I and Claire, like we'd get stopped every day. Like every day we'd get stopped. Oh, you're an attention seeker. Oh, I love your content. Like people would run past us. Hey, attention seeker. And so that was pretty crazy already. And then there was a bunch of content creators who had watched us and seen us. And one of them, his name was Tim Chuzano. He is about 1.4 million or something on TikTok. And he reached out to Joni actually and said, would you guys like to do lunch? And we're like, yeah, cool. Like, so we went out, had lunch with him, and he just happened to be the VP of content marketing for Spectrum.
Yeah.
And he was like, look, I'm looking for a new agency. No one does what you guys are doing. Can you help?
Yeah.
Do you want to be my agency? And I was like, let me think about it.
Yeah.
But actually I was like crying, screaming, everything. And then he just said to me, look, I get where we're at. So this is how much money I've got to do this bit. And it was like a number. He threw out a number for a social media audit that was literally 100 times bigger than what you could charge in New Zealand for an audit, right? He just wanted to tell us what we're doing right and wrong.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, and can you take credit card? Because I'll just put on my P card. And I was like, yes.
Yeah,
here's
of
my
course.
Stripe link.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Get
the money.
machine. Get the Atos machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was
We'll
how
pay
we
for
got
the
that.
$4 coffees.
Yeah, 100%. And then that then snowballed into more and more work with them because we did a good job. And we actually did more than what they asked for. We're like, look, you don't need a social media audit. This is your strategy actually you need.
Yeah.
So it turned into a whole lot more. And then, and then we just like, the reason we took Joni with us, who technically is no help in that side of business development, she's our internal content creator and the face of our TikTok and Instagram. So I took her so that we could just use New York as a character. Then everyone was like, oh, you guys are in New York, let's chat. And New York is just full of A players.
Yeah.
Like everyone in New York is there to win. They don't compete actually. They're all trying to go, how do we win together? Because they're all just grinding. They're all from other places, come to New York. So only the good survive in New York because it's so hard and so expensive. So actually what we found, everyone we met was just like, okay, how do we work together? What do we do? Oh, I know this person. Their flex was, I know these people.
I'll get you in touch with,
That's the American's flex.
Very much. I've heard a thing, it's like if you can't make it in New York, you go to Dubai.
Yeah, probably true.
So Stanley, you mentioned before around, and it's throughout this whole podcast, your appetite for risk.
Yeah.
And, growing at the speed you're growing, taking the punt in New York.
Yeah.
And Mike and I with this podcast have been lucky to interview some like super successful people. And the biggest thing I've taken away from talking to them is their perception on what is possible. And I feel certainly like, Kiwis, we're pretty good at talking ourselves into all the reasons it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your risk profile and how you think about, how you grow at the attention seeker?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the way I think of it is I'm always hedging my bets on everything. So as I said at the beginning, I had a runway and I had super. So I was protected from when I was retired and I had enough money to keep me going. So then I could just do anything because it didn't matter, right? I could go after any business. And so I still do the same thing now. I'm always thinking the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. And my wife hates it because I'll be talking about cash flow, like cash flow is tight, like this, blah, 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 blah. And then the next minute I'm like, oh, we should go spend $1 million on this thing. And she's like, you are insane. You just said we couldn't pay a $5,000 bill today.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but we'll pay it tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there, but that's worst case. This is what's going to happen and what we need to do. So when I look at risk, I'm always going, am I covered in the shortfall? Like, can I take care of all this like worst case scenario stuff? And then as soon as that's covered, I'm like, okay, now just look at upside. What else can I do? And because I like live pretty humbly, like I wear the same clothes every day. I don't own a car. We don't like spend money on stupid stuff we don't need. Like I just reinvest it all back into the business, knowing that we've got at this stage of our life and our growth, we've got the super to fall back on still. I'm just going to continue to grow the business. So because of that, my risk appetite is like real high. Like I'll give things a pun all the time. Like the newsletter we started last year, that's cost me 200 grand so far. And when I told my wife how much it actually cost us last year to do this, she was like, I would have liked 200 grand. I would have liked it. And I was like, yeah, but like if we do this for 2 or 3 more years, that'll start generating us $1 million a year profit. Because it's so cheap to run one, like 200K, but it will generate that.
And it's not going to keep increasing. It's going to be 200K.
Yeah, it's going to be 200K. Like we're not going to change how much we do. We already do daily newsletter. So it's not going to get any more expensive. And so those sorts of things I'm really happy to. Like we started a dating show that it's called The Dating Void. And we've been doing it for a year now. And it cost me so far about 200K as well. And like at first she was like, why are we doing a dating show? Like, what is this? And actually half the team were like, why are we doing a dating show? But now like in March, we're taking to Sydney and Melbourne. We've got like sponsors for it. Like we're talking to all the dating apps about sponsoring it. We sell out the tickets every month for it. So it's probably from April it'll pay for itself.
Yeah.
And then the idea is by next year it turns a profit. But from a branding exercise, like it's done 40 million views. And everyone knows who watches it, that it's us who makes it. So like these sorts of things, like they are big bets for a small business like ours to just throw. In 1 year I threw 400K at these bets just to see if I could do it. And if we didn't do it, would we still be good? Probably. Like the business would succeed, but I would have had 400 grand in my pocket. And it's like, but I think to myself is like, well, what would I have done with that 400 grand? I would have just done something else. It would have just went somewhere else. I wouldn't have just held on to it because I've taken care of the day-to-day operations and I'm covered on the worst case scenario. So all this upside is just like, give it a crack. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, learn when to quit early. Like if I had done the first dating void and it was terrible and no one liked it, I would have just quit. The newsletter, if we had got 2 months in and we couldn't keep it, like if our open rate was 10% and we couldn't get people to subscribe, just kill it. It's fine. So I've started lots of things, but I'm really good at quitting really early, but also like knowing when to quit and when to hold.
Yeah, that's a really interesting statement, isn't it? I'm really good at quitting early, but then we talk about never giving up. Like knowing, and that's a really tough thing, right? What have you not given enough time to be successful versus this is a dud, I've got to move away and go into something else.
I think the problem is that people quit, they're talking about quitting a year in. And I'm quitting like a month in. At the latest, you know, like I'm a month in going, no, this is dumb. Like we tried it, didn't work, let's go. Like we were going to start an influencer part of the agency where we just did influencer marketing. We talked about it for 3 or 4 weeks. We started to look at it. A bunch of influencers wanted to come on board. We had all the other influencers agencies like try to tell us off for trying to cut their lunch. And then I was like, actually, the margins here are crap. Like the amount of money we're going to invest in this, it's going to take me 5-6 years to even make this break even compared to what we do in the agency. But I didn't know that until I really got in and gave it a crack. And so we quit a month in. We didn't even really start it. Like we had a bunch of influencers who were ready to sign with us, and I was like, nah, guys, like we're just going to screw you over like everyone else is screwing you over because it's the only way to make money in this industry. And you guys aren't big enough to really make a difference, unfortunately, because you're in New Zealand. So things like that, quit real early, or if you're a year in, you're too late. You either quit too late, or you just need to hold out and make it work, figure it out.
And what about, so when it comes to taking those bets, I'm quite interested to hear your thoughts on like New Zealand. I mean, you know, like you're in a good position because you've got such a strong brand that you won't experience it compared to others. But when New Zealand is in a recession, businesses are struggling, marketing gets cut, right? I'm interested to hear a little bit about how do you feel the New Zealand economy and how a business is feeling? And then also, how do Kiwis do business in comparison to Americans?
The second question is an interesting one, and I'll answer first because I don't think there's a lot of difference, actually. I think just that they're more optimistic. They're more likely to look on the bright side of life than what you were saying before about Kiwis who are a lot more risk adverse. But the differences in the US is that like a social media agency could get one contract and it's $1 million a year, right? That's not. We've got our biggest client in New Zealand is a New Zealand client is One New Zealand, and they're not spending $1 million a year with us, right? And so it doesn't get that big here. But in the US, you could do that on a small e-commerce brand. Would pay you $1 million a year because they're doing 10, 15 million as a small e-commerce brand in the US. So the size and scale is different, but the mentality is not too much except There's a little bit more optimism compared to New Zealand. I'm a real dick when it comes to this question because like I just don't care. Like people are like, oh, the economy's bad. It's like, yeah, but the economy's not 100% in decline. There's like if it was 20% in decline, like shit, like that's real bad, right? So even if marketing budgets are getting culled, they're not getting culled by 20%. They're not like over on average across all the businesses. There might be like a 5 to 10% reduction, but we only ever hear about the guys who are really losing big because the guys who are just trudging on or might have a little bit of reduction, you don't really hear about it a lot. They might, like Kiwis like to complain, so they might complain about, oh, things are getting tight. But I think if you're doing it right and you're growing a brand and you're good at what you do, like you just work through it. Like you find the right types of clients. So like for us, for instance, like agencies struggled last year. That are like a lot of the agency owners that we know really had a tough year in 2024. And because marketing budgets were getting cut or whatever. But the guys who were doing it well, I mean, they all creamed it. Like we were one of them. We did really well. You look at the guys like Spencer Thompson or Thompson Spencer, whatever, the girl, well, they're just around the corner here. They're doing really well. Like there's businesses who are doing really well. So when people talk about economies going bad, I'm like, yeah, for some, but not for all.
Yeah.
And it's limited. Yeah. And so that's our approach is just like, if I'm crying about the economy and the government, then I'm a terrible business owner.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, right? If I, like I said before about what my wife's saying, just do what you did to get here.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like when things go wrong, a lot of businesses, they'll do what I did when I went to Brisbane. They'll get into that negative mindset, but they won't do the thing to get themselves out of it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so lucky to have my wife because she is able to pull me out of those spirals. So that would be my advice to people is like, if you're thinking that way in that negative mindset, you just need to surround yourself by people who don't think that way, who are thinking about, let's go crush it.
Yeah.
Let's go find the 80% of business still going hard.
There's lots of tips through this for people who are thinking about starting a business. But I'm just keen for those who maybe they're, in salaried work at the moment. You've mentioned that entrepreneurial mindset that you've got. There's people that want to have a crack. What tips would you have for them?
Okay, my biggest regret before I started this business is that I didn't build my brand while someone else was paying. Like I was a GM getting paid really good money and I had a whole marketing team behind me who I could have convinced to build my brand on LinkedIn before I left, or I could have just done it myself while getting a steady income. If you're in salaried work right now and you want to go out on your own, build your brand. Just build it. It'll only take you a couple years, which is nothing in the scheme of things when you're trying to build a business. So just spend that time building a brand on one of the platforms that you prefer to do it on. Be consistent at it for a couple of years while someone else is paying you, and then go out. Because man, like how much easier, I mean, you guys would know, like how much easier it would be if you just had this brand when you started.
Imagine if we'd done this while we were at Westpac and Westpac were paying us and we had to jump ship.
There's no way Westpac's compliance team would let you say any of the things that you say without even looking at the bloopers.
And you know what? But you could like, because I've had people say this, oh, well, my employer wouldn't let me do it. It's like, yeah, but like you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
But you can still build a brand really safely that like employers won't mind, like doing stuff on LinkedIn or whatever it might be, being real professional about it. And then you can switch the brand later into what you want to do.
Yeah.
But honestly, like building a brand early, like, that would have been like when I did my clothing line in the UK, one of my biggest regrets there was I grew that to 34,000 followers in 2012 when Instagram like first was around. And that's how we sold all our t-shirts around London. And then I deleted the account. I didn't really realize the value of that, what it had. It was right at the same time that Ben Francis started Gymshark.
Yeah.
He went on to become a billionaire.
Yeah.
I'm
Hey,
still
you're just a couple years behind. You'll get where you're going.
That's right.
But yeah, that would be my advice to those sorts of people. Just like, don't just go out thinking that your skill set is enough to build the business because you're not special. Everyone, like these days, you can learn how to do just about any job off YouTube. So you're not special actually. But what is really special is a brand. And for a lot of like in your industry, for instance, a lot of the brand comes from the people you know, your network. But what if you could just 10x that online first? And then so when you moved out to go on your own, everyone came with you.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, probably plugs for the attention seeker as well. But I could just imagine, a lot of Kiwis out there being like, I don't want to put like my face out there. I want to build the business, but I don't want the brand. Why is having a personal brand so important?
I mean, at first, like, if people don't know why a personal brand's not important, then honestly, like, there's no convincing them.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's no convincing them. If you don't understand that, there's no convincing you. But the people who say, I don't want to put my face forward, some people use the excuse like, oh, I want to exit the business at some stage. I don't want it tied to me or whatever. A lot of them are just excuses that, like, there's an example for everyone that you could say, like, I want to be able to sell the business. It's like, well, like, there are countless businesses out there that were grown by a personal brand that just sell. And they sell for a lot of money.
Yeah.
People are able to exit. Like, people forget that Jim's mowing's still a real guy. You know, like, he's like that brand.
Good shout, actually. Yeah.
He's got everything, doesn't he? I saw like
Everything.
Jim's IT, and I'm like, how did you get from lawnmowers to tech? Like,
I know, but no one even realizes he's real.
He's
I
a
mean,
guy. Yeah.
he's a real guy. I mean, these days he's on TikTok now because his
No, he's
Gen Z,
not.
his Gen Z teams put him on TikTok.
Oh, how good.
But the thing is that, like, there's always an excuse
Yeah.
for it. My advice to people is that if you don't like being on camera or anything like that, just don't start on camera. Just start writing. There's lots of mediums that you can do things in. My advice is just to do a little bit every day on the simplest, easiest thing you can do. And before you know it, you'll be in front of a camera because you're like, oh, I could do more.
Yeah.
Right? Because it just snowballs and gets momentum and you want. And you get the dopamine hit of getting the likes and then you're like, oh, I'll get more likes if I put my face on it. And it'll just inevitably happen. But the first thing I say to people is just try. Just write something, like, and just document your journey and talk about stuff. But honestly, most people don't see the benefit in it and they never will. So there's no point trying to convince them. And actually, like, I know this is going to sound like a dick move, but like, there's less competition if they don't. So you know what? Don't do it then.
Yeah.
I'm happy if you don't do it. Stay off all the platforms and let me win.
Yeah.
Seriously though, like, you guys are the same. Like, your industry's terrible at marketing. And so you'd prefer if they just didn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You guys can take all of it.
That's why when everyone asks me, like, in finance, should I start a podcast? I'm like, no, man. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
yeah. Or just the which is like a theme throughout all of this conversation, is going, you can do it, but just be prepared to, like, absolutely suck and nobody to watch for 18 months, including your parents telling you that you're crap.
Absolutely.
For a long time.
You got around that by hiring him, which I like. Yeah.
Well, that's it. No, but my brothers, who are all business owners themselves, they all were like, mate, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's
I
such
can
a
imagine
good
Wayne
career.
in your ear just chirping. Yeah.
Wayne was just like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. Sam.
Yeah.
And now he's just like, you have the biggest nuts of anyone I've ever met. Like, how do you do this?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And so now, like, I've vindicated myself by actually being successful. But at the beginning, like, people, like, mum was like, for 3 years, like, so what's LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do?
Why
Like,
would you leave your good paying job to do this?
You're a GM of hotels. Like, that was a top job. Like, you were
I
really
used to
good.
talk about you at the garden parties, and now I don't.
And now she can't even talk about it. So she's like, I don't even know how to talk about what you do.
How you like me now. Well, Stanley, thank you very much for your time today and sharing your story. I think I mentioned before we started, we talk a hell of a lot about property. We talk about shares. We talk about investing. But, you know, productive capital in the form of a business. You think about, you know, what you've grown in terms of all the businesses that you help, and then the ability for them to reinvest, the ability for them to do more business in New Zealand, you know, all the mortgages you're paying, kids going to schools, and then the team you're looking after. Incredibly impressive. So congratulations.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Much love to Partners Life for sponsoring this episode. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, give us a review, give us a like, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.